The questions are coming from the members here in the audience, and the first question is from Patty Smith from Anderson, and her question is, what is your position on charter schools?
My position on charter schools was reflected the other night, and that is that we kind of need to hold the line on them. And in my opening remarks, I don't think that you can go back. You know, there are times when you want to reverse the clock and take it back, but it's too messy. You can't shut down every charter school now, but I think that we ought to hold the line because of the fact that it takes money out of the one pot. It's just not possible, even just from an operational standpoint. You know, if you have a school, the building doesn't get smaller because you've got less students. So in winter, a winter like this, it takes just as much money to heat that school as it does when you have 1 or 100 or 1,000 students in it. So my position on charter schools is that we make sure that those that are here are held accountable. They should not be able to take the funds and not be held to the same kind of standards that the public education is. If they take state funds, if they take tax money, they ought to be held accountable for educating our children just like you all are, and their teachers ought to be certified, even if they're grandfathered in over a certain amount of time. But hold the line. I don't think we ought to keep opening charter schools because it's going to keep draining from the diminished pot.
Thank you. The next question has to do with sales tax in the city. Do you plan on putting rolling the sales tax back to 6%? Mayor Nutter was supposed to have increased the sales tax temporarily. What is your position on that?
Oh, your ringtone sounds just like mine. I was like, I thought I turned my phone on.
I apologize.
No worries. You know, I don't think that we can roll back the sales tax at this time. If we're talking about the fact that we've got to have more money to educate our children, it's got to come from everywhere. Now, certainly, we have hope that with Tom Wolf in, that the state will do better with coming up with their portion. But the city also has to do its portion. So I don't think that we can go back any more than I'm going to try to get rid of every charter school that's already in the school. We want to bring those who are not performing up to speed, but at the same time, we can't take less money in terms of sales tax and then still expect to be able to fully fund our school district. Now, it might not be a popular answer, but it's just economic, simple numbers, simple math.
Okay, the next question has to do with funding as well, and this is from LaShawna Coleman, and the question is, Pennsylvania is one of a few states that does not have an education funding formula. As a result, our schools receive some of the lowest levels of state funding in the country. Please describe in detail how you will work with the legislature in Harrisburg to create a funding formula that is fair to poverty-stricken districts such as Philadelphia.
Well, it takes a lot of negotiation, but the specifics would be, I think that we can put more in, and if we put more in, we can negotiate for more. So what do you mean? How do you put more in? Well, we don't take down our sales tax, that's one. And then we say to them, look, we're going to increase what we give. How do we increase it? The city of Philadelphia, love the city, but it's got some arcane and Byzantine ways of dealing with and doing business. So there are a lot of vacant properties around the city of Philadelphia, a lot of them. And I believe that there are developers in the city who would do some partnerships similar to the one that we have at my church. And we've invested with someone who has created a space with our church where we continue to serve the community, and at the same time, it's going to turn into some apartments. And so what's going to happen is that the city, on a building that was just sitting, because it was where we formerly worshiped before we built our current structure, the city is now going to collect taxes in a way that they didn't on an abandoned property. So I think that we can look at our housing stock, abandoned housing stock. There was a report on this in Plan Philly back in 2013 that said we're leaving about $500 million on the table. And so I think that a little bit more organization, deciding, hey, you're a developer that's outside the state, you're not doing what you ought to do, my time's up. But I believe that we can collect more money. If we collect more money and say to the Commonwealth, hey, look, we're putting more in, you put more in, so that we can educate our children.
This question comes from Tatiana Olmedo from Central High School. What are your specific plans to create a locally elected school board in Philadelphia, given that you support the dissolution of the SRC as the governing body for the school district of Philadelphia?
Well, let's talk history. If the School Reform Commission was intended to get more money into the school district, you know, the argument was, we don't have enough money to run our school. So if you think that we can run it on this amount, you come in and help us. Well, it didn't happen. So then we start the discussion on, we still need to get to where we are in terms of how much it takes to educate our children. If we're $1,000 less than the average for educating our children, we take the conversation to the fact that this is what it takes in order for us to educate our children. All the other things that I've already mentioned, we say this is how we get the money. We say to them, you need to put in some more money, but we want to take back over our school district. I don't believe that since the School Reform Commission was supposed to answer the problem of not having enough money that we should continue with it. I think it ought to be dissolved, and we ought to say to them, let's go back to the history of this thing. Now, I know we've had several governors since it came into being, but we return to the discussion about why it was even established, establish the fact that it's not answered that problem, and then say we need to negotiate local control again because it's not doing what it was established to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Chief Goodman for coming out this evening.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.